Hello and welcome back to Christian Weather Broadcasting. Today we're going to be discussing potential tropical cyclone 1, disturbance number 1, and disturbance number 2. But before we do that, repent and put your faith in Jesus because only He can save you from hell. We deserve hell for our sins, but Jesus can save you. And if you'd like to know more, check out the gospel message in the description. Alrighty, everybody, let's get right into this video. Right now, you were looking at potential tropical cyclone 1, which is quite a mouthful to say, so it's going to be shortened to PTC1 for easiness. Anyway, you were looking at PTC1. I almost had to say the whole mouthful there by accident. And the center of the storm is right around here, and the storm activity is not near the center. It is actually a little bit away from the center of this system. Let's go to the true color and get a little better view of how this thing looks. So, personally, I could be wrong, but I think it looks a little better defined than it did earlier. It's still not a tropical storm, but it is still forecast to become a tropical storm. Center looks to be right around here, and before it becomes a tropical storm, it'll have to get a better defined center than it has now. But as you can see, storm activity is not near the center of the system, which will allow for rain to move into Texas. It also has a large wind field on it based on what the National Hurricane Center is discussing, and we're going to have to discuss that. But I would say also Louisiana down to Texas, you guys will be experiencing rain. Not to mention Mexico is also going to get rain, but as far as the United States effects, those two states are going to be getting the rain from the system. I think Texas is going to get more rain. If I remember right, Louisiana is not even mentioned in the flash flooding potential. But I could be wrong on that. We'll see that map soon. Right now, we're at 35 knots, or 40 mile per hour wind, 999 millibars, moving northwest at 7 miles per hour. Let's go into the National Hurricane Center. Before we read the key messages, I want to go over the cone. You can see the giant wind field on this thing. Texas is going to be experiencing tropical storm force winds, and I think based on the models, areas inland in Mexico are going to be experiencing the strongest wind gusts. Here's what the NHC is showing. Tomorrow evening, it is forecast to become a tropical storm nearing landfall, and it is supposed to get to around 45 miles per hour. You can now see there are tropical storm warnings extending from Mexico all the way up to Texas. So if you are in those areas, do be prepared for tropical storm conditions. Nothing extremely dangerous, but one thing I was thinking about that could happen is downed trees, because tropical storm force winds do down trees, but due to the rain saturation, I kind of have a slight feeling we may see uprooted trees. I could be completely off on that, but just a feeling that I have. Because of the amount of rain, we, I think, could see uprooted trees. Here's our rain forecast for the United States. You can see Corpus Christi. It's lessened from what it was, I think, which is good. 8 to 12 inches, though, still quite a bit of rain forecast for this area. You can see down near Laredo and Brownsville, you're looking at 4 to 6 inches. So a swath in Texas experiencing above 4 inches of rain. Some areas experiencing lower than that, around 2 inches of rain. Still pretty good amount of rain. Again, like I said, Louisiana is not going to experience that much rain, but I would expect some light rain from this system if you're in Louisiana. Let's go to our flash flooding potential. Okay, so I was wrong. Louisiana actually has a marginal 5% chance of rain. You can see there's a moderate at least 40% chance for portions of Texas down here, and a slight chance up further inland into Texas. So there is a chance of flash flooding. Obviously, when you get rains, there's always the chance of flash flooding, especially inches of rain. There's also a chance of storm surge. So, mouth of the Rio Grande, looking at around 1 to 3 feet. Then going up Galveston Bay, 2 to 4 feet, and Sabine Pass to Vermilion is looking around 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. Nothing too bad, but slightly raised water elevation from this storm. Let's go to the wind speed probabilities, latest wind speed probabilities. So, in Mexico, where there is making landfall, it looks like there is about a 70 to 80% chance in this area, right along the coast, of tropical storm force winds, and the 30 to 40% chance goes inland into Mexico, and 5 to 10% chance quite inland, but those areas will probably get more rain than anything. And also down in Texas, the highest chance forecasted right now for Texas is 50 to 60% chance, though I think possibly other parts of Texas will experience gusty winds due to the fact the models are showing areas in coastal Texas could experience tropical storm force wind gusts, and I'll show you those models here soon. And it doesn't show it in this map, but honestly, and I could be totally wrong, but based on the models, and again, I'll show you this, I think this part of Mexico, right around here, should also be watching for tropical storm force wind gusts. Based on what the, not sustained winds in those areas, but I think that we should keep an eye out. And by the way, this is, I believe, sustained wind force probabilities, but other areas will be getting wind force, tropical storm force wind gusts. So what time are these winds going to get to you? Well, around, for Texas to Mexico, well, kind of on the border with Mexico, around 2 a.m. Wednesday, and around Wednesday, 8 a.m., those winds are moving into Mexico. So, let's go now to the key messages for this storm. Users are reminded not to focus on the exact forecast track of the system. The disturbance is very large, with rainfall, coastal flooding, and wind impacts likely to occur far from the center of the coasts of Texas and northeastern Mexico. And I agree with what the NHC is saying here, because if you focus on the exact track, you're forgetting that Texas is also going to experience the effects of the system, since the storm activity is actually quite far from the exact center. And if you notice, it's all on the northern side of the storm. Or excuse me, northeast, I believe. Rainfall associated with potential Tropical Cyclone 1 will impact large regions of Central America across northeastern Mexico into South Texas. This rainfall will likely produce considerable flash and urban flooding, along with new and renewed river flooding. Life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides are likely in areas of higher terrain across the Mexican states of Coahuila, excuse me if I mispronounced that, and Nuevo Leon, including the city of Monterrey. Moderate coastal flooding is likely along much of the Texas coast through midweek. And tropical storm conditions are expected to begin overnight on Wednesday along portions of the Texas coast south of San Luis Pass and along portions of the coast of northeastern Mexico with a tropical storm warning area. So those are our key messages. Now I believe it is time to go to the models. And interestingly, based on the models, I think we may see, whoops, that was a little mistake there. We may see a track a little further south than what the center line of the NHC is showing now based on the models. Let's go through the ECMWF. You can see the exact center tracking south of where the NHC center line has it. As far as sustained winds aren't going to be as strong, but there are tropical storm force wind gusts to expect. GFS model also going slightly south of where the NHC is forecasting. The Icon model is also going south, it looks like. So, just not quite as much as the others. It's a little closer to what the NHC is forecasting. So, I'd actually expect the system to go slightly south of where it's forecast currently to go. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, I'm going to say landfall is going to be in Altamira. I think we'll see landfall there based on what the models are showing right now. So that's where I'm putting landfall. I could be totally wrong, but based on the models, Altamira is where it looks like we're going to see landfall, according to the models, but latest forecast has it further north than Altamira. Again, if you do not focus on the exact track because the effects are going to be extending all the way into Texas. So please don't focus on exact track. Exact track with this storm doesn't mean as much as effects outside of the exact track. What are we looking for? What are we looking for? Looking at as far as wind gusts go? Well, let's start off with the icon model. We'll start off with this one first. You can see portions of Texas, especially coastal Texas, are going to be getting more of those wind gusts. You can see portions of coastal Texas pulling about, hold on here, about 39 knot wind gusts, which would be above 40 mile per hour wind. And if we fast forward, you can see those higher wind gusts moving inland to Mexico, where you're getting about 65 knot wind gusts near Monterey. That would be, that's pretty high wind gusts. So, according to the models, and not only this model, but a couple others are showing higher wind gusts inland to Mexico. So, if you live inland in Mexico, do expect some higher wind gusts according to this model. Let's go to the NAM model. Again, you can see those higher wind gusts into Texas. The NAM model is also forecasting some stronger wind gusts for Texas. You can see around Corpus Christi, around 47 to 49 knot wind gusts, which is over 50 mile an hour wind gusts. And let's move to the GFS next. See what the GFS is forecasting. GFS is forecasting some more inland wind gusts for Texas, which is interesting. Not all the other models are forecasting that. And GFS isn't quite forecasting as strong of wind gusts for inland Texas, but at the coast around Corpus Christi, we could be seeing 38 knot wind gusts. So that's about just over 40 mile per hour wind. And the ECMWF model is not forecasting wind gusts as strong for Texas, but forecasting stronger wind gusts inland in Mexico. You can see here around 45 knot wind gusts. And as this thing goes inland, you can see some of those higher wind gusts into Mexico. In some areas pulling up around 46, 48 knots. So that's over 50 mile an hour wind. And let's go to the HRRR model finally for Texas and portions of Mexico. So the HRRR model is forecasting some wind gusts moving on land. You can see also some high wind gusts inland again in Mexico here. Just slightly above Corpus Christi, around Rockport. It's looking like on the coast wind gusts around 42 knots, which would be over 45 miles per hour. And those wind gusts are going to be some spotty wind gusts according to this model. So that's what the models are showing as far as wind gusts. Now let's talk about our other systems in the Atlantic. So I'm going to go back here. Actually, I'm going to go to the National Hurricane Center just to show you where they are. and to show you what they are saying about these. So we have disturbance number 1 right here. An area of showers and thunderstorms located several hundred miles east of the Bahamas is associated with a surface trough and an upper-level area of low pressure. Environmental conditions are marginally conducive for some gradual development of the system during the next few days while it moves westward or west-northwestward. The system is forecast to approach the coast of southeastern United States on Thursday. 10% chance in the next 48 hours, 20% in the next 7 days, so very unlikely that we're going to actually see this thing form. Let's go to our next 7 days. And by the way, the most it could bring is probably some rain. And next up, we have disturbance number 2. Another broad area of low pressure is forecast to develop over the southwestern Gulf of Mexico this weekend. Environmental conditions are expected to be conducive for gradual development of the system early next week while it moves slowly northwestward. Formation chance for the next 48 hours is low, near 0%, and through the next 7 days, it is low at 30% chance. It is expected to be conducive, so we could possibly see this form as well. And let's go to the model forecast to give you an idea of exactly what this thing is going to do. I want to bring you first to the GFS model, and we're going to pool this into the Western Atlantic so we can get a better idea, or easier to see what's going on. So, my model is not working. There it goes. Okay, there we go. After that, the GFS is updating. Sorry about that. We will move to the Euro model then. After our first system that is forecast to become Alberto moves through, we do have another one forming there, and it's going to be another broad area, so probably a similar forecast to that, to the one we have now. Let's go to the ECAIF model. That one's not forecasting. Oh, it is. Excuse me. I was wrong. It is forecasting another system, similar location, not forming very strong. Looks like maybe slightly weaker according to forecast than this one. Let's see what the CMC model is forecasting. There comes the second system, slightly weaker. So, the second system after this one, which is forecast to become Alberto, is, according to the model forecast, not going to be as strong as Alberto, but does have a possibility of formation, and it's going to take a very, very similar track. So, that is what's going to happen with that one, and it's likely going to form over the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this one. And before we go, let's go to see what the H-Wharf and some of the other hurricane models have to forecast about the PTC one before we go. So the H-Wharf model is forecasting minimum of 992 millibar pressure as this thing moves on land. The HMON is forecasting, and this one usually shows stronger. The HMON is forecasting around 990. Actually, no, down to 986 millibar pressure. And interestingly, the track of the HMON gives this thing a little more time over water. Brings it in around Mexico, and then has it going slightly south, which is an interesting note on the HMON. And let's go to the H-Wharf parent before we go. H-Wharf parent is forecasting around 993 millibar at landfall. Not very strong winds, though, according to forecast. Well, that is what's going on at the Atlantic. Let's go to what's going on in your own life. Well, this is happening in your own life if you happen to be in Texas or Mexico, but for the rest of the U.S., this is what's going on. Here's tomorrow's forecast with the GFS model. In the next 24 hours, total rain accumulation, you can see areas in Texas are going to be getting some rain, a couple inches of rain according to the GFS model. Areas in Mexico also going to be getting rain, and I'll go into more of a rain forecast maybe tomorrow. And, Kansas, you're going to be getting a couple inches of rain. Looks like maybe above 5 inches of rain in just one little spot. West is looking dry. The East Coast is looking like they may get some light rain. And temperature forecast. By the way, I made a mistake before. I did not adjust for time zone. So I had to fix that, and that's why there are two pictures of the US in a half. Well, one full picture, one half picture. So in the East Coast, about 1 p.m., so afternoon, Florida's looking like low 90s to 80s. Texas is looking a little cooler, I'd say probably because of that system, PTC1. And up in Maine, hot, 97. That's pretty hot. Mid to high 80s in Pennsylvania, but I think that is... But, that's 1 p.m., so that's not around the high. Pretty hot. West is looking cool to medium, and, excuse me, I meant Midwest. And the West Coast, here's the West Coast over here, in the half picture, is going to be seeing probably mid to high 70s to low 80s, except down in California where it's going to be much higher in temperature. In Southern California, looks like you may get up near 100 in certain areas. So that is what is going on with the weather in the U.S. today and Mexico because of that system. Hopefully I'll be doing a live stream on that system tomorrow. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow. This has been Christian Weather Broadcasting.